and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Marvel Fan Theories podcast. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Katie, and we're two sisters and borderline obsessed Marvel fans who have been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe closely for years. And now we want to share our MCU discussions with you.
We chat about our own predictions and theories, plus some of our favorites from online, and our reactions to all of the Marvel content that's considered MCU canon, including the Disney Plus shows and the movies, as well as the Marvel news you need to know. All right, everyone. As you guys may have guessed, we are here to talk all things She-Hulk Episode 7 today. And honestly, I think Katie and I both agree. We really liked this one. Super pumped to talk about it in depth and get into episodes 8 and 9, or what we think is happening in episodes 8 and 9. So, as always, I'll let Katie take it away.
Yeah, I immediately told you, and I was like, she asked me how I felt about it, and I was like, yep. This did it for me. This is what I needed. Those 3 middle episodes that just felt like an elongated filler, gone in the rear view, in my opinion. I loved this episode. I don't know if it's because of the other characters, which makes me sad, because I don't want to feel like I'm only liking it when there's, I guess this is a cameo? I don't really see it as a cameo, but so I hope it's not just because I like having some of these other cameos in it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode.
I just thought it was so fun. I also thought, we've talked a lot throughout the episodes about Jen's, development as a character and development really as a woman being comfortable in her own skin. And I thought that there was a lot of work done in this episode to bring kind of what we've seen home to roost, right? She's really starting to come to terms with what it means to be Jennifer versus what it means to be She-Hulk, and how she can appreciate both sides of her. So even from that aspect, I thought it, really paid off as well.
Yeah, I mean, I said to Taylor, too, in the same conversation, well, I like to be right. And I was right about 2 things, actually. And one being is she was really on this journey of figuring out Jen and She-Hulk, how they can kind of live in that same space together. And I feel like this episode we saw that come wide open. And, Emil, of all people, broke that out of her, and she was comfortable to talk about it and, had this acceptance finally, I think. And then on top of that, and I have to say I was right because I kept saying that was coming, we were seeing this struggle internally, and I was ready for that culminating point. So glad we got that. I'm not going to yet get to what the other thing I was right about, because I don't want to jump around the episode far too much. I think it works best when we try to handle it in a semi-chronological order for everyone. But when we get there, I was also right about it. That's all I'm going to say.
You guys probably know what that is, but,
yeah.
We're going to hold off on getting in-depth into it, because I know that's going to, bridge a lot into what we have to talk about, especially going into episodes 8 and 9. There was a certain character that has been rumored to come, we know is coming, still didn't come in today, so we'll dive into that a little bit more.
Well, then I was right about something else.
Okay, we'll get to those at the end.
Well, no, because that one's actually correct, and you just brought it up, so I'm just going to say it. Actually, you were not here. This was the episode in which Davis guessed, but I was right in saying there was a rumor going around that the certain person that Taylor is referring to, which...
Daredevil!
Yeah, I was like, I don't know why we're playing like the he who shall not be named, like we all know who we're talking about, wouldn't come in until 8 or 9. And I shared that. I said, I don't know how, like, I'm not going to stand on that ground per se. I don't know. It's a rumor I saw, but that I told everybody, told all of you, don't be prepared to see him the next episode, because I didn't think we were going to. Now it's 2 episodes later, and, all we have left is 8 and 9, so... Looks like someone was correct, not just me, but because obviously I bought into the rumor, but whoever started the rumor or said the rumor, like I said before, it seemed to come from a reliable source, but you never know. So we'll just point out that correct again.
Yeah.
I'm 3 for 3.
Yes. If you're not counting any of the other ones that you were wrong about, you're 3 for 3, because that's totally how math works.
That is how my math works, yes. Thank you very much.
If anybody ever wonders, Caitlin was a comm major in
So
math.
were you. So
I'm just
in
saying,
math?
I'm just saying, a comm major, you know what?
So are you. So you can step back on that one.
Anyway, all that to say, we don't math as a general rule.
No.
But anyway, aside, let's start from the beginning of the episode. So we open, Jen's getting ready for a date. We've all been there. You're very excited. You're getting ready. She takes a shot. Relatable again, Jennifer.
and then we see the kind of montage of her and Josh on all these dates. They finally sleep together. She seems so happy. And I was just like, I just was so happy for Jen. I was like, Jen gets to be Jen with a guy who likes her. Like, not She-Hulk, and that, she gets into that later, but like, it was fun to see. In the back of my mind, obviously, I know the suspicions that we had, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But It was still nice to see her happy, because I think Jen has been, even when she's quote-unquote happy, there's like a cloud over her. Like, does this person really like me for me, or does this person like me for She-Hulk? And I think for once in the show, we got to really see her comfortable in her own skin, happy in her own skin as Jennifer. And then obviously that does not pan out. But for a hot second, I was happy to see Jen happy.
I have to laugh because we are defining that there are two different types of viewers to this show. You saw those scenes and you were like, she's happy. I was watching those scenes like, Jen, you're being stupid. Like, I was like, you're being dumb. This is suspicious. Stop doing everything you're doing. This man is a no-go. Why are you doing what you're doing? Like, the entire time I just was like, this isn't cute. Get him out of your house. Like, and so clearly two different types of viewers. One is much more suspicious of men, I think, than others.
It's not that I'm not suspicious of men. I just chose to compartmentalize what I knew was probably a bad dude to enjoy once seeing Jennifer happy.
I knew, I felt it in my gut. I was like, girl, this is so bad. This is so bad. And so when it finally ended, as in like that little montage, I was like, thank God. He's like, this is not good. This is not good. I knew how bad it already was going to be. And then obviously it got worse, but we didn't know that yet. So let's, we're going through this episode. He's ghosting her.
Rip. That hurts. That's not fun.
Yeah. I can't really relate.
Unfortunately, listeners, I can. And for all of you who also can, it freaking sucks.
And I'm not, and I'm 100% sure it does. I'm just saying, like, I can't, like, directly relate to that part of the show. However,
we've all been Jennifer, except for apparently Caitlin.
I mean, I don't know.
But really quick, I do want to just point out, a lot of these scenes, I think, just add to my admiration for how they've made this character, like, again, really relatable. Like, we talked about it in the first 3 episodes a lot. I think maybe 4 through 6 were a little drier, in that sense, where I was like, just wasn't really vibing with it as much. But this episode, I was like, it's back. Like, it felt like tonally it was back to 1 through 3. And I was like, returning to that place where I was like, Jen's going through this experience. I've had this experience. I see myself in Jennifer. And those are the scenes that make me really enjoy the show, where I'm like, insert me and change the location to New York. This is my life. Sometimes not as glamorous, but cute.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And honestly, I felt that way even last episode with, like, the bridesmaid kind of thing and that vibe. I mean, I've never necessarily been a bridesmaid, but I, like, understood just, like, the vibe around it. I was like, yeah, yep. But, so, she obviously relates here. She gets ghosted. I'm sitting there like, don't do it. And she's fighting everything inside her. Fast forward, we end up, she has to go check on Emil. Now, I'm just going to throw this out here immediately. Only Marvel could make me end up loving Emil.
I literally would protect him with my life, even though he's Abomination and totally can handle himself.
I'm like, look at this little bean.
I know. He's like, well, I was trying to save my chicken.
I know. It was my favorite chicken. I was like, okay.
Her name is Princess. And then did you catch later where they brought her around? He was like, hi, Princess. She's so cute. I was like, I love him so much.
I know. And so I was like, okay, perfection.
Yeah. And especially because he's like, I hated him in The Incredible Hulk. I was like, this guy, if he got, like, totally taken out by a torpedo, which is supposed to be underwater, but, like, for whatever reason he got torpedoed,
sure,
I'd be cool with it. But now I'm like, somebody torpedoes Emil, I'm gonna go after them because I love him so much.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I'm in love with Emil, and only Marvel could make me sit here and, like, do a full 180 on it. And we all know I have my fascination with the Abomination, but, like, only Marvel could truly make me do a 180. No, what am I saying? I'm such a liar. Look at me. Literally, Bucky was a villain. Wanda was a villain. Loki was a villain. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I was like, this kind of fits your whole thing.
I know. And then, Black Widow literally, like, dropped a building on a little girl and, like, So, let's backtrack. Just ignore everything I just said because actually, this makes a lot of sense.
And honestly, I will say, too, like, I think they've done a really good job, basically ever since Black Panther, of making their villains like, likable, or, like, empathetic. Like, we talk all the time about Killmonger. I think the most recent example then was, why am I blanking? Christian Bale's character. Gore the God Butcher, you know, really well-written villains, but they not only are now writing better villains, they're actually rehabbing old villains in a really cool way, which is just as cool, and I, like, admire that so much.
Well, and you said it. I mean, even in episode 3, when he's having his parole, you know, we talked about it. He was becoming, like, we were seeing his side of the story, and we were understanding him for who he was.
Yeah.
And, I mean, to be fair, there's a degree, too, that, like, if you take out the part where literally the government, like, it's an order for him and he did what he had to do. Well, when he was an Abomination, like, not an Abomination, when he was Abomination, but he, like, I think something we don't always remember, and I know I don't always think about, is, like, Bruce always said the Hulk was a different person for him. And the Hulk, for a long time, he had no control. Like, it took a lot to get him to come back to being Bruce. And I think we don't always think about that, but that's what Emil went through. So when he became Abomination, I mean, the man was not thinking, like, I'm gonna destroy Harlem. Like, he wasn't thinking. He was not in control.
Well, it actually, and I know we've talked so many times about the relationship between the Hulks and the various iterations of the Hulk coming from, obviously, Bruce's original, and how it's related to the super soldier serum. Mm-hmm. And when you were saying that, I kept thinking about John telling his best friend, who unfortunately his name escapes me, in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, saying, hey, you know, I don't know if I should do this. And his friend saying, yeah, but it just, you know, amplifies who you are. It amplifies what you want. And that being like a justification because you're a good dude. But like, if you think about Emil, what does Emil want? He wants to complete the mission. Yeah. So if you're amplifying that then in the Abomination, then it doesn't matter what the collateral damage is because at the end of the day, he's going to complete the mission. And that desire is amplified umpteenth millionfold because of the serum, which is, you know, not even, as we pointed out, a perfect or even relatively good serum because you don't have the brains, Bruce, behind it.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So I love this 180 we get from Emil. And so as we go through this episode, which I didn't expect it to be the whole episode, but it was perfect the way it was. It really was. So I'm happy that it turned out the way it did. But as we go throughout the episode, you know, obviously Jen's, like, desperate to get service. She's, like, not happy with being there.
That montage of her, no service, all over the thing.
That was awesome.
I was dying.
That was awesome. I was like, what a very unique and creative way to show that to us, too. Yeah. I thought that was really cool from, like, a design perspective.
Yeah.
But then, this is probably my favorite part of the episode, and there were so many highs in this episode for me to say that. Like, it does mean a lot here. When... and I don't know if they even said his name, but the guy who walks in at the very, like, they're all already in the meeting room during the thing, and the guy who walks in, and Jen, like, obviously has recognition, and I literally sat here, I was like, I don't know who this dude is.
I know, I was like, who is this person?
But then, she breaks the fourth wall to literally be like, you probably don't remember this dude, so let's do it. If he wasn't in the previously on, let's do it again. Yeah. And let me show you who this guy is. And they did it, and I kid you not, I was like, oh my god, she's, like, read my mind. Like, I know this was, like, part of the show. I'm not stupid. Like, I'm not, like, but I genuinely, like, that is the first time I think she broke the fourth wall in a way that I genuinely just felt like she just saw my thoughts and just was like, I got you. Yeah. Let's roll it back, because if he wasn't showed earlier, you have no idea who this dude is and why I'm reacting this way. So... let's do it again.
It was also cool, and I do want to spend some time with the guys in the circle because...
oh, for sure.
Jen's Big Bros are my new favorite supergroup. But one of the things I thought was so interesting was for the first time, we saw Jen lose control as She-Hulk. She changes, and obviously that was a purposeful and intentional change because I don't think Jen really changes unless she wants to, but she allowed herself to lose control and throw this guy across a room. Yeah. You know, and I was like, wow, this is giving me some Bruce vibes. And I like that Jen can control herself. I think the way they've tied that to her femininity and her experience as a woman is really cool. But it was also interesting to see that there is that breaking point, you know, and when he says, you know, you'd think I was a supervillain the way I came at you or whatever. And she was like, 4-on-1, 4 men on 1 woman. You are a supervillain. Yeah. I was like, yes.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, that was my favorite part of the episode, was her breaking the fourth wall to pretty much be like, I got you guys. I know you're a little confused. I know you're not remembering. so let's go back, and we got this. And I was like, okay, great. And then when they sit down in therapy.
Oh my god. These scenes were some of my favorite scenes of all Disney Plus TV.
Amazing. I honestly was just so thrown off by what was going on, but also it was just perfection in my opinion. So I'm like, there's not even, I sat there and I just was enjoying it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot of this show has been for me, was I can sit back and just enjoy a lot of it. And I know Davis even was making that point when he was here. We don't have to sit there and look for every little Easter egg or every maybe like slight mention of something or this, that, and another. I can literally sit there and be like, I don't need to think too hard about Manbull.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to put that much effort into this character. I don't need to sit there and feel like I need to search him up or anything else. I'm like, no, he's here. He's entertaining me. I'm having a good time watching this.
He has a total bromance with El Aguila. Like,
Yeah.
I was living for that.
Yeah.
And when they kept calling them codependent, I was like, oh my god. And then the vampire guy, I was like, is this a hint at Blade? Like, that was the one where I was like, he thinks he's a vampire? Is this the first time we're really talking about vampires in the MCU? I think it is, and that's not an accident.
No, I thought the same thing as soon as they mentioned what his, I say, crux is. So I was really intrigued. And just like, it seemed random. I know it does, but it genuinely pulled together a lot, in my opinion. And I just like, I was enjoying all of it. But before we move away from Vampire Dude, I will say, he makes a very interesting comment at one point when they're, like, giving Jen life advice. You know?
Cash.
And I know it's in his character because he thinks he's a vampire. But
I know exactly what you're going to say.
But he literally goes, does he want your blood?
Yeah.
And you saw Jen's face was like, wait. Like, she did trip up a little bit on that because she was like, huh? And I don't know if it was because
it was so weird.
Or if she kind of was putting together, like...
Well, especially because one of the guys who attacked her for her blood was sitting 2 feet to her left.
But that's another thing, and I do want to bring this up. I thought it was weird we didn't get more background on him.
Yeah.
Like, obviously we knew they worked for somebody. We got that confirmation back when they attacked her. I don't even remember what episode that is. I think 3.
I think so.
And I thought it was a little weird that we didn't, like, ever breach that topic of, like, why'd you attack me?
Yeah.
It was never really brought up. And so I thought that was kind of weird. And I'm all for his arc of, like, clearly bettering himself. But I was like, you were hired by someone and you didn't finish the job, which is a whole other aspect that I think we have to take into account.
And the fact that he had 3 friends who are not there with him.
Well, exactly. So I thought that was really weird. And I was a little upset. That was probably the biggest part I was upset about. No, there's one other part. But that's just because I'm upset with Jen. But I was just upset because I felt like we had an opportunity to start. And I know we'll get to the point where we definitely progressed that plot line. But I felt like this was a good place to get some more answers. And
Agreed.
I didn't really feel like we got that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I was kind of hoping we would get a little more on him, to your point. I'm not going to lie, he sat next to her the whole time. And I kept, when she turned back...
Thinking he was going to jump her?
Yeah, yep. I kept waiting for him to just shove a needle in her neck.
So
and I was like, oh my god, it's going to happen as she's having this beautiful self-recognition moment.
I thought the same thing. I was like, this guy, I'm too suspicious of this man. I don't believe he's here for full redemption.
Yeah, and then he turned out to be like this little bean, and it was great, but I was like, the whole time, I was like, my antenna were on high alert. I was like, I am so ready for him. Not in like, I'm really ready for him to do this, but I was like, I was prepared to like not be shocked when he like came at her. Because he too was like really pushing her to like, be Jen, be Jen, be Jen. And I was like, that's because she's vulnerable and you want to go after her and you want to complete the job.
Well, and that's another thing. I want to know what changed. Like, I know he talks a little bit about like he wanted power and he thought that the weapons he was using, which says Guardian construction tools, which I think is funny, where it was going to give that to him and XYZ. But I'm like, still going back to that point where I was like, you were hired out. You didn't it wasn't just about power because you attacked this person for a reason. Like, if you wanted power, there were so many other ways to have gone about doing that you didn't do. So I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't getting a full story.
That's fair. I don't know, like, there's a part of me that's still a little suspicious of him because I don't want to take them off the board yet. as a pawn, but because obviously they're like clearly not, you know, the puppet master, but at the same time, like, I've grown to really enjoy the character, so I kind of don't want him to be a backstabber, and I don't know that she'll be going back to, what is it called, Summer Twilight or something? Which I thought was hilarious.
And I agree. I don't think we'll see that narrative, because I think that whole line, I mean, I don't think he's an important enough character to give him, like, a whole, he went through a redemption arc. And then he's bad again. Like, I just don't really think he's that. I don't even know his name. Like, I don't think he was given a name.
No, they definitely said it because Emil yells at him a couple times, but I'm really bad at names.
So am I, but then, you know, I didn't even realize they said it. I never even thought they did. So, regardless, like, he maybe was named this episode, but, like, he didn't even have a name the first time.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so I don't think he's important enough for the entire plot to have that type of, like, that's a Wanda-style character arc that was built over, like, 6 films.
Yeah.
So, I don't quite see that coming out of that. And I do think the wrecking crew is off the board at this point, because I think, for lack of better words, they were just a couple idiots hired to do a hit.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it. They realized that the threat was bigger than what these people could do. And so they're coming at her in a more tactful way, which... Let's get into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
First off, for our ladies out there, never trust a man whose name starts with J. We know this. I mean, like, we know this. So that was Jen's first mistake, was trusting a man whose name starts with J. But also, I kid you not, the anger I felt after all these men who just met her were going to kill for her because this man disappointed her and let her down. And 3 days later, she's, like, with him?
No, it was 3 days earlier. He did that the night they slept together.
Oh my god, I'm sorry, Jen.
I was like,
I didn't.
What?
Okay, to be fair, I was watching this and, like, multitasking, so I definitely only saw 3 days, and this is how it was like. Well, okay.
No, it was a flashback, because now she's recovered from
That
it.
That makes sense. I apologize to Jen. I held some harbored anger because I was like, Miss Girl, I even said this to you earlier and you didn't correct me.
Well, to be fair, I mean, like, I don't know, I thought you were angry because he was sus and you were just mad that she, like, progressed the relationship, which I understood, but I didn't realize it was because you thought she went back to him.
I thought it said 3 days later.
No, it was flashbacking or flashing back to...
So I formally do apologize to Jen.
On the record.
Although, I stand with you never trust a guy whose name starts with J. So, that was still a lesson learned and something she should have looked out for prior to everything. But yeah, so now...
Moving on.
The night that he was there, not 3 days later, all one night, all happened at the same time. Okay. Now we obviously saw what happened.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I assure you I didn't run out of words. Like, genuinely, I'm heated. I'm angry for her.
Listeners, if you can't tell, this is one of those very special episodes we get to do together. And sometimes when we're in the same room, we get a little giggly. This is one of those episodes.
But truly, I was so angry. I was like, she let this man in her house like this? You're a lawyer. Like, you're a lawyer. You see everything. You hear about all these crimes, and I don't care how long you've known somebody. I don't know how long the montage was at the beginning of the episode. Far too long, in my opinion. But regardless.
3 dates. 3 dates.
Okay, 3 dates? Like, girl. In my opinion, you're trusting too easily. Especially for being a lawyer. And you're a superhero. Like, you've got all the stats that should be like, you're really gonna think this through.
Bruce did tell her, birds poop on Hulks, essentially.
Yeah, like, as soon as, they attract the people to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm, like, unless she's Jen, like, people see her. It's not like Captain America, who puts on a baseball hat.
And some glasses.
Yeah, and you're like, that's not a cop.
I have those glasses.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Specimen.
Never not iconic.
I know. But it's not like you're fairly normal looking. Like, when you're a Hulk, you're green. Like, nobody just sees a green human being, a jacked green human being.
He's 10 foot tall.
Yeah. So I'm like, girl, you're a target. You were told that by your cousin who's been in this realm for a lot longer than you. You were literally already attacked. And you're a lawyer who, like, actively worked on cases that I'm sure you heard about all sorts of things that happened. Why are we as trusting as we are? Like, that was so aggravating. And now look what happened. So he obviously took data and stuff off her phone, took her blood. The blood...
How did he take her blood?
I don't know, but didn't it say on the text that he got it?
I was trying to understand the emojis. Like, I understood it was like Hulk, needle, thumbs up, but I was like, I didn't understand how he, like...
I didn't either, but I just assumed if you're giving a thumbs up, it means it happened.
Yeah, I mean, he took a picture of her, and I was like, that was skeezy.
Weird. Especially she's, like, just sleeping. I was like,
full on naked, too.
Oh, was she?
Well, yeah. I mean...
yeah. And once again, I was multitasking, so there were times I, like, looked away. Also, I was sitting in a room where the sun was shining on me, so those dark scenes were hard to see. And I was, like, staring at it like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I could see his figure. I could see when he, like, did the whole, like, phone thing and took the picture, but I really wasn't, like, paying enough attention to see then what was happening. Regardless, I assumed he got the blood.
I didn't make that assumption, but it does make sense.
He also then dropped contact with her, so I would assume mission was complete.
Yeah. Here's the big question of the episode, and I think we may have answered it last week.
Okay.
Who's the Hulk King?
Oh. Yeah, so I think now we can confirm that I think it's the leader.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
Obviously, if you guys were listening to us last week, we kind of talked about this, went on a semi-tangent about it.
An important tangent nonetheless.
I agree. And then also, I definitely broke it down a little bit more in a concise manner on the blog. There's a lot of reasons, I think, and I don't know if we really articulated them as well last week as I think we can now.
Yeah.
For one, once again, I don't spend my free time watching The Incredible Hulk. I really doubt you do. But if you remember anything about it, Bruce was in contact with somebody, I think he was like, what, Mr. Pink or Blue or something like that?
Oh, yeah, I totally forgot about that whole thing.
Well then, here's something. I said this before, but as soon as I showed the computer last week, it seemed very reminiscent of that, and that kind of builds the case to who it is. But then we find out, of course, in The Incredible Hulk, that this Mr., I think it's Mr. Blue, it's a color.
I think you're right, yeah.
It's a color, is Samuel Stern. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Now, that's really not the important part. It's the fact that he's the one who sort of helps make the Abomination, and still not the important part. After he makes the Abomination, obviously, good old Emil is not really actively in charge of his body at the time, and hits him, kind of just, like, creates chaos in the lab, takes off. And in the process, some of Bruce's blood seeps into a wound in Samuel's head, and we see his head, like, bubble really uncomfortably. And, you know, in 2008, we probably had a lot of theories, and then by 10 years later, we were over the theories because they happened 10 years ago.
We were just like, ooh, there's another plot thread that Marvel decided never to pick up again.
But now we're thinking we're gonna get right back to that, because Samuel Stern, if you're not aware, becomes the leader, who also happened to just be named the villain in the new Captain America movie. I remember, and I said this in the blog, thinking it was pretty weird we were getting a villain for a movie that barely started filming.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a little strange, having a villain named out. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it. And then that episode of She-Hulk came out.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of things, in my opinion, confirming who this would be. And it makes sense why he would want Hulk blood. I mean, first off, he was a scientist.
Well, that was kind of what he was studying.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's like his, like subject matter expert
and Bruce
thing.
Was sending him his blood.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised, and I think if anything, we're stepping up to see this, and it makes sense why this would lead right into New World Order then.
Yeah.
Like, this is setting him up for that. So while he's technically, I think, in my opinion, going to be sort of the big bad of this show, exactly, this is really his origin of showing what he's going to do in the next Cap.
I actually think if we're going to talk about similar kind of villain entries, I see him very similarly to Kingpin in the sense that, like, in Hawkeye, in the sense that, like, he was the big bad the whole time, and they have, like, one fight scene, but he gets away, and now he's gonna be an Echo, and now he's gonna probably be, I mean, he was on stage, but now he's gonna be back in Daredevil Born Again. So it's like, that was like, he was the big bad, yes, but he wasn't defeated. It was just setting him up to go on to new things, and I think we're gonna see the same thing with the leader.
I agree. And I think it's very fitting, and to your point, it's a plot thread that, you know, we thought all was kind of dropped. Because to be fair, I think Marvel for a long time would do anything but admit the Incredible Hulk pretty much existed.
Well, and that too, and we've talked about this before, like, there's a lot of rights issues, and the rights are starting to revert back to Marvel in the next couple of years, so I think that's why we're starting to see things like a possible World War Hulk being talked about, or what's the other one? Planet Hulk. You know, and that's why we're seeing Hulk off-world now, potentially setting up those things, because for the first time in 15 years, they actually will have the opportunity to really play with that character in non-ensemble films, because if you've noticed, he's only ever been with other characters.
Yeah. No, and I agree. So, I think, if anything, this proves more. But, going off the fact that I think he got her blood, I think mission accomplished.
Yeah.
I think we need to be concerned onto why it's going to be used. Now, if it is the leader, I mean, first off, we gotta fill in the blanks of where he's been for, like, 15 years.
Yeah, like, what has he been up to?
Yeah, because obviously we knew the Abomination, Emil, was in prison. That makes sense. But I'm a little... And not that I thought he would be in prison. He didn't really necessarily do anything wrong. I mean, like, maybe there's some gray there, but, like... They weren't worried about him when Harlem was literally being torn apart.
Well, yeah, and there's really almost no way to trace what happened in Harlem back to him.
Yeah.
So he, like, basically was able to wash his hands of it and go on with his life, other than his, like, seriously deformed head.
And the fact that he should be turning green.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued. I'm sure he was pretty much, you know, hidden away. I don't think for a second this guy's walking around like Megamind. Like, I don't think...
Literally, that was what I was trying to think of. Like, I was like, what does this guy remind me of? Megamind.
Yeah. I don't think he's, like, out here doing anything of that nature. I think he's been hidden away. It's what he seems to do best. He goes under aliases and hides away. Okay. I'm sure he continued his studies, especially now that he's, like, technically a Hulk.
Well, and not to mention, you know, Bruce made a big deal about how Jennifer's genes were different. Like, they were just different enough that they allowed her to do some things that he couldn't do and things like that.
Control it.
Exactly.
And that's something the leader doesn't necessarily have the right to do. He is green and big-brained, literally, pretty much permanently. Like, that's not something he can just reverse. Versus Jen has that ability to seamlessly go in and out, and I do wonder if that would be a want for him to understand if he could inject himself. Although, we've learned injecting yourself with other people's blood is, like, not smart. And it almost never ends well.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, I think this is just guaranteeing that. I don't know why Josh wanted a picture of her. I don't know if it's, like, proof. I don't know.
I just thought it was creepy.
Oh, I thought it was creepy, too. I'm also intrigued because he went off her phone and was copying stuff off of her phone. And I'm thinking, well, she's a lawyer, so she probably has quite a bit of confidential stuff on there, but to, like, what degree that somebody part of intelligentsia would want.
So you think the leader's behind the intelligentsia?
Well, he's a member.
So is Ulysses Claw, who's dead now, but
also was confirmed all the way back, and was that Age of Ultron?
Yeah.
I wanted to say that in the blog post, but I couldn't remember if it was Age of Ultron or not, that we saw the file.
I think it was.
I think it was because that's where he loses part of his arm. Love Ultron. But
okay.
Ultron sometimes makes me sympathetic to Wanda. So, regardless, we've seen this before. This was literally like a tiny little egg that we saw way back when. And so, knowing that the leader, that's already been established, so this thing has been around for years.
I just wonder how many other villains are in this bad guy poop on girls club.
Well, not even that. I'm thinking, was the leader the one who started it all together?
Timeline-wise, he's the earliest.
We know of. Like, I would not be surprised.
Yeah.
So, I'm fully thinking, like, I'm not worried about this all being combined or, like, connected. It is in my brain. Like, I see where everything's crossing. I'm just intrigued because I'm like, you know, I'm going to theoretically say that everything we saw on the show has been her cases. Like, I don't think there's been, like, other cases she's worked since we've started the show.
You know what I wonder? because she's in the superhuman division, if he's trying to recruit other superhumans and do genetic testing.
Oh, well, I wasn't going to go there. I was just thinking, from what we've already seen, like, what are we...
Well, because wouldn't he want Mr. Immortal's powers? You know what I mean? Like, how can you recreate some of these... Or even the Light Elf. The ability to change your appearance into anyone else. Like, think about that. Like, I could see that as being a motivation, especially as someone whose background is as a scientist, is understanding what makes them different and how can it be replicated, especially when he's a replication of a science experiment gone wrong.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, that's why I thought he went through her phone more than anything, or copied the stuff from her phone, because I don't really see what else she could possibly have.
Maybe the location of Bruce's hideout.
That's all I was going to say. But Bruce isn't on World.
But his lab is still there.
That's true.
With all of his data.
That's true.
And all his tech from Tony.
But that's all I was thinking, too, was in relation to Bruce. Because to be fair, too, I mean, Bruce's blood's the one who did it. At the end of the day.
At the end of the day, everybody's here because of Bruce, so...
Well, very true. And actually, this all goes back to that darn Steve Rogers.
Truly. 41 or 43?
All our problems literally all the problems have stemmed from him. Just saying. But regardless, I don't know. I think that's a pretty concrete thing. I'm ready because with the thought of Daredevil coming in the next episode or two, I'm thinking this makes sense.
I guess that was my one question though, is to me, Daredevil and the Leader don't go together.
I think Jen will find out somehow. Something's going to be exposed to her that she finds out, and I think having somebody like Daredevil come in and kind of maybe be a helpful hand in whatever journey she's about to go on here. Because keep in mind, up until now, she's faced Titania?
Yeah.
Does that really even count?
No.
So whatever yeah, exactly. So whatever she's truly going to be up against here, maybe it could
way
be
bigger than anything she's faced before.
Yeah, and maybe it could be definitely beneficial to sit here and have somebody kind of come into town who could be a voice of reason, but also kick some butt when needed.
And has the experience in doing so. The way that Bruce has experience being a Hulk, but Matt has experience kicking butt, taking names. Regardless of whether, how that whole shakes out with the show, it's clear no matter what, his show, it's clear no matter what that he's been Daredevil for a hot minute, and he kind of knows what's up.
Can I share a really dumb theory?
Yeah.
It's the 7 degrees or 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, whatever that is. That's what this theory is going to sound like. But obviously Born Again is going to be, I feel weird saying reboot.
Yeah. I don't know how they're going to work it.
Well, because I don't think it's going to be, it's not going to be an origin. It's going to be we hit the ground running. Almost like we even did with She-Hulk, even though it wasn't origin short.
Or Spider-Man, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't see it being an origin at all. So I think this is going to sound weird. But the Leader gets her blood. Okay, say he wants to do scientific stuff on it, but honestly, now we also have to think he's evil. So he's probably taking, and when I say taking orders, I don't mean being ordered around, literally taking orders like you would with a shop. There are probably people out there who would, and I said this before, do anything to have a Hulk's blood and be able to use it.
One of those characters could be a certain General Ross.
Oh, see, I wasn't going there yet.
Can I just quickly, there was something I saw on the internet today that made me squeak I don't even know, what is a squeak? A mouse? My squeak.
Sure. I was going to say squeaky toy.
That works too. A dog with a squeaky toy. I was this excited. There was a rumor by a relatively, reputable source, comicbook.com. I trust them with a lot of rumors, saying that Marvel Studios, I'm going to say this so dramatically because this is a big deal, is looking at none other than the Harrison Ford to replace the actor William Hurt, who died, who played General Ross, to take over the mantle as Red Hulk in the Thunderbolts. Harrison Ford! Indiana Jones, Han Solo, General Ross, Red Hulk.
Possibly.
Yes, I'm just saying.
You're listing what he's been in, and then you were like, General Ross, and I'm like, that's a rumor.
The past, and now we're moving potentially into the future.
Well, regardless, that's not where I was going to go, because my theory is stupid, but I want to put it out there.
Okay.
Either way, gotta set the stage again, because I was interrupted.
Okay, but that was a big piece of news that I was very excited about, and I think a lot of our listeners are going to be saying, okay, I'm sorry.
Either way, this guy's evil. I think, he wouldn't be against taking orders. I mean, he's also scientifically very gifted, and that was 15 years ago.
And that was before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, truly, and remember, there are some wacky things you can do with science that we shouldn't do with science, yet there are people out there willing to do it.
Steve Rogers?
Yeah. It all goes back to Steve. But anyway, what if we have a certain large man in New York City who might want to buy some of these things, or have him create something for him, or someone, or I guess something is probably still better, for him, and who would go on that radar of a certain large man if he's trying to be up to something that's not too good in New York City? A certain Daredevil.
Yeah, well, and let's not forget, in the Daredevil show, Kingpin, albeit in my opinion unknowingly, works for the Hand, which, if you guys are unfamiliar, because I truthfully was very unfamiliar before I got into the Defenders, the Hand is this, clandestine organization. They've basically figured out how to live forever and bring people back from the dead and, all of this stuff. And Kingpin wasn't really into that whole bring people back from the dead part of it, because he was in jail, but also I don't really know how deep he was in, what he was funding. But he was connected to those people. Now, in that series, they've been taken care of. That was the point of the Defenders. But, I don't know, he has been aligned with some crazy science. I don't know that I would call what they do science, because it's kind of got a mystical element to it, but he's been working with people in that kind of realm before, so it's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
Well, and, I want to bring that up again because, we talked about Kingpin from the get-go.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big contender to still rely on. And I see that being the connection that brings And granted, okay, we see Daredevil, his helmet was in, a couple episodes ago. And I remember making the joke, what?
King Hulk? I assumed that was the leader.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about it.
I assumed it was the leader, but...
It still could be the leader, but definitely...
But there's another option. That's all I'm saying.
I didn't even think about that. Well, and that's why I'm sitting here and I'm like, I remember making the joke, oh, Daredevil's, he's only coming to LA for, an outfit. How funny. But at the end of the day, he also put it in a box, as if he was going to ship it anyway. He might not have been just coming to LA just for that reason. I would not be surprised if he's been put on the radar of someone's blood all of a sudden on the market and falling into the wrong hands. And that's what pulls him into being in LA, because in the trailer that we have gotten, we did see him talking to her and saying, listen, Jen can do what she can do in the courtroom, but She-Hulk can do more outside.
Yeah.
And obviously he's having a heart-to-heart. He's having an inspirational,
he's
talk
Matthew.
with her.
He's not Daredevil in that moment.
So that's why I have to sit here and think, that's almost like a Tony and Peter moment of, you gotta learn that you gotta have responsibility.
Yeah.
You're a superhero now, you need to think like one. You're a threat to everybody out there, so that makes them a threat to you.
Yeah.
And so I actually think, Matt's going to be the one to drive that point home at the end of the day. And so I see that being a very clear connecting line in my head.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, now that you pointed that out, I think that makes sense. I think where I was struggling was we had kind of moved away from the Kingpin element, and that's where I was like, I don't see the line between the leader and Daredevil, but if we're going to bring in kind of who could be in the market for the leader's goods, then it starts to make a little more sense and bring in
that's why I said
Daredevil elements.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's a little wild. It's a little bit of that, couple degrees, but it's a possibility. And I know we were so passionate about the Kingpin at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I honestly wouldn't be too surprised. I also think maybe Kingpin's literally the one paying him to get the blood.
Bankrolling the whole thing?
Yeah, to have him go after her. I'm not... Because that Wrecking Crew seemed to be right up his speed.
Well, actually, you know what I thought of, too? What happens at the end of Hawkeye? He gets shot in the face.
Yeah, but we don't have a for sure timeline.
I'm trying to think if there's anything to give it away. There's nothing.
There isn't. So that's the other thing. There are some things that we have gotten some concrete answers about from She-Hulk, which I can deeply appreciate. But that's not one of them. We have not gotten a concrete answer of where this lies with Hawkeye.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, I could see him using it as a way to heal himself from the shot in the face he got from Maya.
I mean, we're going to have some explanation to that one.
Well, that's what Echo's for.
No, but I know, that's what I mean. It's not going to be a long cliffhanger. We have something slated already that's going to give us an answer, but, maybe, but we haven't gotten confirmation on where each thing lies.
Yeah. This one's going to be fun. I'm really excited for the next 2 episodes. I think we were both kind of bummed with how things kind of rolled in the middle, and we were less enthused, but 7's got me going again, and I'm really excited.
The only thing that upsets me almost is, if 1 through 3 was good, and then 4 through 6 was meh. And now we're picking it back up at 7, I'm going to assume 8, 9. I'm like, then why didn't we do 6 episodes?
Yeah, even,
and I hate saying that.
Yeah, but, even if they're shorter, I get that they were doing the WandaVision shorter episodes, more episodes model, I get it. But, if you don't have enough content to fill 9 weeks, you don't have to fill 9 weeks. Just do enough content that makes it worth it.
Yeah. Because honestly, that's a little bit how I felt, and I don't need to get into it again because I talked about it last week. But even with Titania, it felt weird.
Yeah.
This is probably going to be the only show I go back and watch from beginning to end once they're all out to feel like I feel if there's cohesiveness, because I think the one thing I don't like about the week to week is I feel like I don't know if if the past episode flows as nicely as I think it should into the next episode. Yeah. So I will probably go back, and because it's a little shorter, I feel like I can probably do that. Just to kind of be like, did this feel as out of place now looking back at it as I thought it did, or does it actually go together and I'm not overthinking, or I'm just overthinking it?
Yeah, we'll see. But I don't know about you. I have said all of my things. I'm getting the in-person thumbs up tonight. So we're going to call that an episode on She-Hulk episode 7. I think it's no secret we are back on the She-Hulk train. We've been re-enthused by episode 7. We're coming into our last hour of content. I think it's going to be a big one, and I'm super pumped.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. So if you guys are looking forward to keeping up with us while we cover the last 2 episodes of She-Hulk, and also Werewolf by Night, which comes out not this coming week, but the week after, we will be doing a short little episode with that as well, then you should definitely subscribe to us if you haven't already on your podcast platform of choice. If you're already enjoying the show, we would seriously appreciate a rating or a review. Love to hear from you. Love to know what you love or don't love about the show. Also, you can check us out on Redbubble, where we have all kinds of merch to help support the show. And last but not least, certainly not least, you can check out our blog, where, as Katie mentioned earlier in the episode, we have a little bit more concise explanations, maybe a little more thought-out explanations, some extra context, extra research. So if you're just looking for some supplemental content, you can definitely check that out. Also linked in the show notes below.
Make sure you guys are also following us on Twitter at Let's Talk MFT. Really, everything's there, so just make sure you're giving us a follow so you're keeping up with everything. And what Taylor was saying earlier, I'm keeping up with the Kardashians. I feel like we could make our own version. I don't know. We'll have to figure something out there, because we're always telling you guys to keep up, but definitely keep up. As Taylor mentioned, we'll do a little short episode for Werewolf by Night. We'll also be in the next 2 weeks wrapping up She-Hulk as those last 2 episodes come out, which seems so weird to say. And then that's the end of the shows for 2022 already. We will then still be covering, obviously, the brand new Black Panther that will be out in early November. So keep an eye out then for those 2 episodes, the predictions and the reactions. And we're pretty much wrapping up 22 as far as what Marvel's giving us. Of course, we'll give our own content in the meantime. But just giving you guys a little slate of what's coming up. Also, make sure by the time you're listening to this, our October newsletter will have already come out. But make sure you guys are signing up and subscribing to that just to keep up, once again, with that content that we are producing, and you guys can kind of stay up to date with everything and read some great stories and thoughts. So keep up with everything, keep up with Marvel and us, and I'm saying it now.
It's our new catchphrase.
To keep saying that. I'm doing it for fun. But keep up with everything, because Marvel just blew your mind, so let's talk about it.